All right, I'm going to call the Willits City Council meeting to order on this August 14th at 6:30 p.m. What's that?
Would you like the doors closed?
The doors will stay open because we want the public to feel welcome to come in, but that's a great question. Thank you. All right, we're going to begin with the pledge. If you'll all join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin with our roll call.
Councilmember Connie?
Yes.
Strong? Yes. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Here.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes.
So, Madam Mayor, before we begin, staff would like the council to consider amending the agenda to have a continuation of item 9D, which is the proposed 24-25 budget.
I would so move. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
We have a second. Any objections? Any comment from the public? All right, I'll call for the vote on that.
Councilmember Connie?
Yes.
Strong? Yes. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes. All right, the motion carries 5-0. What we're doing is we are tabling item 9D, which was a presentation and possible adoption of our 24-25 budget. We want to look at it a little further. All right, our next order of business is public communication. The City Council welcomes input from the audience. If there is a matter that more than one person would like to speak on, you can appoint someone. And if you wish, the Brown Act regulations do not allow action to be taken on any item that comes before us during public communication. And if you'd like to speak during this portion on an item that is not on the agenda, if you'll step up to the podium, just so you know, the microphone does not echo in the room. So you have to speak up. It's mostly so that those who might be watching on YouTube or closed circuit TV would be able to have the opportunity to hear. Is there anyone here on an item that is not on the agenda?
Yes, my name is David Parch, and on the 24th of August, I'm going to be hosting Deborah Baker, who is our first Poet Laureate of Mendocino County. She was just selected to this position in June, so it's a brand new thing. It's a brand new thing this year, it has been instituted this year, thanks to a group of poets that put that together. So this is going to be her very first reading, featured reading as the Poet Laureate. And since we have the honor of doing this in Willits, I thought it would be very nice if we had some of the representatives of the City Council there to welcome her to the City of Willits for this reading. So I brought some little reminders with me to give to you all for the date and the time and the place that it will take place. And I really would appreciate having some representation from the city there.
Thank you. You can hand those to the clerk if you want, and she'll make sure we each get a copy.
Okay. And here's one for you. And one for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Robin Leeler, and I'd like to make a continuation of what happened at the last meeting when we were talking about the redwood trees at Starbucks. And I was really happy to hear that Starbucks submitted a new plan. They're not going to cut the redwoods. I heard people talk about writing a tree ordinance so that we have clear guidelines about keeping our precious trees, be they redwoods or oaks or shade trees of any kind. I heard at the end of that meeting that the plans were to work more on an ordinance and call in a consultant. And I would like to encourage the council to consider another pathway of using volunteers to do a lot of the research and legwork on that and save city staff time and save consultant fees. I know that I lived in Reading for a year, and I was surprised to find out that the Sacramento County has ordinances in place. They have lost 95% of the oak trees that were in Sacramento County before Europeans came. And so they have strict ordinances. You cannot cut an oak tree. You cannot even cut a limb off an oak tree without a permit from the county. So I know other cities have ordinances that I would like to volunteer my services and be part of whatever happens with this ordinance by researching other ordinances, putting together what I think is a good plan for Willits with other people that are interested. And I hope you'll consider that for the tree ordinance and also for other subjects that come up, having volunteers be able to work in the process and make it a community event. And that would particularly involve the farmers market pavilion at the park. I would like people to be able to back up and get a little more input that preserves the grassy areas that were so important to the farmers market and you know, makes it as nice as it used to be when we had the farmers market there. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address us, sir?
This is my information. It's a copy for everybody.
Thank you.
My name is David Pollen, and I'm asking the City of Willits Council that as time moves along, the communities within the county expand with growth. That you, as the City of Willits, at this time, present and pass a city ordinance to allow property owners within any area being decided upon to be annexed will be given the right to vote on this annexation of their property. I ask that you encourage the County of Mendocino supervisors to do the same for all property and property owners within Mendocino County. Trying to attend meetings is not having a legal say in the disposition of citizens' property. Other neighbors in my community feel this would be a fair, transparent inclusion of property owners. Hoping your concerns for not dictating but allowing the community to represent freedom of choice, which may easily agree with your proposals, but just being told what it is leaves us in limbo or whatever. You'll be saying what you're offering and what we're getting or whatever, and we don't get to say it though. Well, you just kind of talk like I am today. That's I read it. This is what, you have copies of it. I appreciate the time. Thank you. And Willits is a wonderful town. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other communication on items not on the agenda?
Mark Walker. They're on 55 West Oak. So the two trees that were mentioned earlier, I don't have a problem with, which leave them or cut them. It don't matter to me. But who's going to assume a liability for the trees if they do have an accident? Go over in a windstorm, crush a car, and kill somebody. Who's going to be liable if we put out an ordinance saying we don't want them cut? So that assumes you're taking liability for those trees? I don't know. That's out of the way now. So what I'm originally here for is the scrap locomotives over here on Railroad Avenue. When they were first moved over there, well, let me back up. So what I first heard was a lot of talk about the grant coming through for the walking trail and all this, and the trail was going to end right here on the south end of the station. And all that talk was done, and more happened, and then all of a sudden, this scrap junk from the north end appeared on the south end. Now, I'm not assuming that it's there for waiting for somebody to pass this grant, get this money, and get that stuff scrapped free. It don't matter to me what they do. But the fact that the stuff was moved there and is a safety hazard, and there was no barriers put up to keep the public away from it, deems it a public nuisance. So why hasn't the city pursued a public nuisance claim against them and have this stuff scrapped and moved out of there? That's just what I see. I don't know if that applies or not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right. As I stated before, we cannot comment on items that are not on the agenda, but I want to encourage each of you to reach out to any of us council members. If you go on the city's website, or if you're not on the website, you can always stop in the office and ask for contact information for us. I know that there are many topics that were discussed that we could give you additional information on, or clarify, or just listen to further feedback from you. So keep that in mind. All right. I'm going to move on to public matters. We have a presentation by the FFA of their 2024 Holiday Light Up the Park event.
My name is Rex Davidson. I'm an officer with Willits FFA. On December 14th, around 7 p.m. after the Truckers Light Parade, Willits FFA would like to put on the second annual Light Up the Park with live music, vendors, treats, and a competition between the best decorated Christmas tree.
Wonderful. We're glad you're here talking about it. Loved the first annual event, and I think that I could probably speak for the rest of the council that we're excited about the second annual event, and always appreciate any time anybody in the community brings forth more activities in Willits. It was an enjoyable experience. We're looking forward to it again. Is there anything that you, aside from awareness, is there anything that you would like the city to do to help support it? Do you have any specific requests?
I don't think so.
Not yet. Okay. Any objections from council or any questions for this young man?
I just want to say, Rex, thank you very much. You know, we had to cut down trees there for safety reasons, and things are looking better, but in the interim, or even just after forever and ever, if this happens, it's just another holiday thing that just makes the town special. And you guys just added more to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say that you're a fine example for leadership. I know that FFA isn't just about raising animals. It's very much about taking leadership roles, and you did a great job presenting to us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody from the public that has a question or comment about the presentation? All right, hearing none, thank you. And we look forward to the second annual event. Do you have a flyer or anything you want us to see?
Yeah.
If you give it to Dolores, then she can make copies if you've got one, and make sure we're
actually in the packet as well.
in the packet as well. That's right. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be there to check it out and probably participate in some capacity.
And on the website.
And on the website. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the notice public hearing, which is to conduct annual review of rate and changes for various city services and adopt the accompanying resolution approving changes in certain city fees and charges effective September 1st, 2024. Manuel Orozco is our finance director, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I have before you the master's fee schedule for fiscal year 24-25. Every year, due to California Constitution Proposition 218, we have to adopt a fee schedule every year, either by resolution or by ordinance. And so we, on July 18th, had the Willits Weekly contain the notice of the hearing. July 24th, we had the meeting, and it was asked for us to continue it until this August 14th meeting, in which we also had a second notice on August 8th in order to be able to provide that to Willits Weekly as well. And so I have before you here the master fee schedule for your consideration.
Have we received any written letters or of any sorts from
Not
the
that I'm
public?
aware of, no.
Okay. Has council received any feedback specific to this matter that you want to share?
There were a few comments on social media grumbling just in general about fee increases, but I did not receive any direct communications via email, Facebook Messenger, in person, phone call. So it was pretty crickety out there.
Okay. I think at this time I'll open it up for the public. If you'd like to step up to the podium, if you want to give any of your thoughts on this matter. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Van Golden. I'm a tenant at the Willits Airport. I don't know if it pertains to rent increases at the airport as well, but we feel that the number that was presented to us is not realistic. And we've looked around at other local airports, and they raise the rates at a rate of 1.5% per year, and if that's put into effect at the Willits Airport, then our hangar rent should increase by approximately $32 a month currently, but it's been presented to us at $72 a month.
Did you have may I ask, do you recall if there was a rate increase in prior years when other municipalities were increasing their rent?
No, we have not had a rate increase at the Willits Airport in 9 years. And we're not arguing against having a rate increase, but if you were to increase the rate at 1.5% over the past 9 years, then it would be $32, not $72. And we're just asking that be considered. And then if we get on the regular schedule at 1.5%, I don't think anybody would have any qualms about that at all. But we're just looking for a more realistic
Some more
rate.
information. Okay, do you mind if I ask our finance manager how we came about the calculations for that?
So the calculation came about of what we could reasonably consider a incremental jump to cover the costs of the last 9 years in terms of us not raising rates or anything like that. The problem is that we've had a litany of additional costs that are associated with the airport in order for us to be able to cover. And so for each enterprise fund, they have to cover their own costs without utilizing any additional funds from the general fund or any place like that. And unfortunately, we've had additional costs in terms of legal fees and everything like that throughout the last few years that has precipitated us to be able to increase the rent per se. But we didn't do it as nearly as much as it would be to recover costs. And mostly that's because we wanted to wait until we actually did a rate study for the hangars and everything like that so that it could be cost effective. The problem is that we have a couple of items that have come before us. What's considered FAA Part 16, if I remember correctly. It's a review of our standards and practices. And we've had, I think, if I remember correctly, two separate inquiries on that from one of the tenants. And so we have to address that, and we have to spend the money in order to be able to cover the costs. And so with us covering those costs, we have to be able to recoup that somehow.
Did I hear you right say that it was a tenant that asked about us recovering our costs?
No, it was more of a tenant that expressed to FAA a concern that they had.
About us recovering costs?
About our practices within the FAA, or within the airport itself.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that there's been significant improvements at the airport, which have increased costs at the city.
Yes.
And we want to ensure that the general fund, that most programs have to have a way of being self-sustaining.
Exactly.
And so you're asking the airport fees to go up to help compensate for the increased costs in upgrading the facility and with the litigation that we've been receiving from
Yes.
mostly one complaint.
Put in a fence, we put in a gate, we took down some trees for safety. We did quite a few things. We remodeled the bathroom up there and everything. So all these things have costs associated with them.
What about comparables? So I understand that portion, but what about the comparables in terms of like have you done a calculation that shows if we had raised rates, for example, at the same rate as a comparable municipality had, if we'd raised rates at that same rate, would it have been, I think, sir, you said something like $32?
$32.
Do we know? I mean, we have to raise rates at the rate that is appropriate for our municipality based on how much money we have to invest to maintain the thing. And for other people, it may be cheaper because maybe they have a more modern and they didn't have to do as many upgrades. But I'm just wondering if that factored into the decision at all.
We factored mostly, if I remember correctly, most of the decision was factored in. And the way that we did it was we established what the costs were over the years, and then we brought it down to a reasonable increase because we didn't want to do a high increase into the rates and rentals until we actually had a study that showed everything that was going on. So basically what it was we took all the costs that were associated with all the remodels and all of the litigation fees and things like that we had. And when we looked at the number was fairly high. And so we decided to bring it back a tad so that we wouldn't charge that large amount to the tenants.
So the rate currently is $72 per month more than it was.
Yes.
And your
Looks like 76.
$76. And your request is that it was closer to the 32 mark. Did I understand you?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the amount of money that has been spent at the airport in recent times. The airport's been maintained for almost those 9 years, more than those 9 years, by volunteers in order to keep the costs down. General aviation is under constant attack. And quite frankly, we have one individual that is driving the cost up exponentially. And we don't feel that we should absorb the burden for a single individual that, that drives our rates up like this. We're just asking for it to be fair and allow the tenants that are willing to help and willing to volunteer to maintain a lower cost, not just to help us out, but to help the city out as well.
Okay, I'm going to see if there's some council members that have comments or questions.
Nanny, we haven't got really comparable airport data on what's being charged at other places that are relatively similar to ours. We just don't have that data yet?
Madam Mayor and council members, if I may be able to add to this discussion? Do I have the opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I wasn't finished. But
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, so that was one question. The other thing I wanted to point out was that I don't know what our rates were 9 years ago compared to other airports, but the rate of inflation over the last 9 years has been way more than 1.5% a year. I mean, it's been averaging
3% or more.
Yeah, well, in some cases 5%. So anyway, in order to keep up with the inflation, if we weren't charging enough 9 years ago, I'm not sure what it'll turn out to be fair, but I understand your concern of having sort of sticker shock. But I think we need to also try to recoup the actual expenses as much as we can. And it's wonderful if volunteers are doing a lot of the work. That's great, and help keep the cost down. But I do think that inflation has been way over 1.5%. So it doesn't surprise me too much that we're having to have a bigger bump.
City Manager, you want to give some information?
Yes, those are good points by Member Strong. I just want for some clarification, and obviously every component of this fee schedule went through a pretty comprehensive review with staff level, with department heads, and we looked at the value, the money, and the delivery of services that the public expects from the city. We did a pretty further comprehensive look at the airport because it was even further behind. The majority of the fee schedule dates from 2019. The airport fee schedule is 2015. Airport manager, assistant city manager Kathy Moorhead contacted what's about 7 or 8 regional airports, comparable in size and operational window. And some were higher, some were lower in their fees for tenants and in holdings for individual parcels and hangars. But what we recognize is that our facility, the amount of investment that we have made through grant opportunities and other funding opportunities that we put into that airport, it is a quality operation that people are seeking out. The other airports in Northern California all have certain environmental limitations, either due to the proximity to the ocean, terrain, isolation. Our airport is ideal. And yes, we probably extended out the fees a little bit to take in that interest that people and airport pilots have expressed in our facility. So it's within the marketplace that other airports serve, but it's also generating revenue that we're putting back into that facility and making as many improvements. We are leveraging as many of the FAA grant opportunities that we can make. We can demonstrate the amount of investment we have made and the quality of the operations.
Any further questions? Councilmember Connie, did you have anything? No? Sir, your time is generally up, but I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute if there's just something you wanted to finish saying.
No, the main thing is that up until recently, probably about the passing of Bill Wilson, that the airport was operating profitably with a surplus of revenues. And unfortunately, because all these unexpected expenses that have come to us in the recent years, it has completely flip-flopped. And we would like to get it back to a point where it can be at least operating evenly, even if it's not profitable. If it's breaking even, that would be, okay. But, to have an attack on general aviation, I mean, general aviation is shrinking. You're not finding the next generation coming up. We haven't had airport day since 2017. And, the few of us that are extremely passionate about the aviation are trying to make it more appealing to the next generation. And if it gets more and more expensive, it becomes less and less appealing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else from the public want to address us on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back up here. Anyone have further thoughts?
Well, I just want to say that the whole purpose of these fees is to recover costs, and so that we can provide these services. So we're not supposed to really be turning a profit, so to speak. It's about recovering costs.
Yeah, it's normally about cost recovery. Sometimes it's a little bit extra if we have a planned project or something like that to be able to leverage funds from other grants. That's pretty much, it's a small increase above cost in order to be able to leverage grants and have additional funding available for us to be able to do so. So that's usually like how that goes in order to be able to have that. I'm not certain what the overage is on this one, but I don't think it's that much, if anything.
And I know we've invested a lot in the airport, not just chasing grants, but I know cutting trees and runway and those sort of things. In the time I've been on the council, there's been a lot of improvements. I see it as an asset. I mean, I thank you folks that are up there doing anything, but I also see it as an asset to the community. I mean, the fact that we've got the air ambulance up there and it's helped us out during the fires, it's an asset that I want to keep. Not just for folks that want to fly experimental aircraft, but just for the general public to have that facility up for emergencies, et cetera. I think it's something that it's a treasure to the community. So I kind of want to separate the airport out from the other fees, but I think that's just one thing I want to point out.
Yes.
I'm sympathetic to the tenants at the airport. I know we're all under pressure from increasing costs everywhere. I feel it acutely as a small business owner. There's part of me, though, that thinks if the tenants at the airport aren't helping offset the costs and help the city recoup the costs of actually maintaining the airport, then those costs are bared by the rest of the community, because it all has to come out of the general fund. So if the actual users of the airport aren't the ones paying those cost recovery costs, everyone else is paying it. So it's going to be recovered somehow, and just how much it comes out of the general fund and how much it comes out of the users, I think is something we all have to weigh.
Well, it has been maintained by the volunteers.
Sir.
And you did, you made a letter.
Actually, she's allowed to speak, and I close the public comment. But I think we're all aware of your point, and I think Greta makes a really good point that it has to come from somewhere. But I'm also sympathetic in that I know that the users, the tenants, have been volunteering, they have been doing, and it's very evident that because we have one individual that has been providing the city with a significant amount of litigation, which is no fault of the other tenants. We sympathize with you, and it sounds like maybe there's some sympathy with us. We're still in a position where we have to do right by all of our constituents within the city of Limits. So I know this will be a tough decision as it pertains to the airport. The other fees are much easier for us to say, okay, this is in line and we're comfortable with it. Anytime we have an increase, it's hard. But I do believe that we're at that time of the evening where we need to, either make a motion or consider a change or something. So does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I will make a motion accepting staff recommendations. I would ask those folks that have issues with particular fees that maybe for next year, before we get to this stage, that if there's some suggestions they have leading into it, instead of the night of. The reason we extended this hearing now is we wanted a chance to look at these fees more and have the public weigh in more if there wasn't some more comment going into it. So, but my motion is to accept staff recommendations on the fees presented tonight.
We have a motion, we have a second, and I just want to point out, I do believe we have regular airport meetings.
We do.
And
quarterly.
tenants have been attending, so.
Yes.
Even though we heard about it tonight, I think that maybe there has probably been some feedback.
We have had
at the
discussion
meetings
about
as
it.
well.
And we are not the only one that's going up. Ukiah just went up at their meeting last week as well. And they raise theirs a certain percentage, and then they raise it 1.5% each year until they bring it back for a bigger increase.
So
I did talk to the airport manager and the city manager this last week, and they sent me a document of what their fee schedule was going to.
I know that when I got on the council, it was painful to have to increase water rates.
Oh, yeah.
Because councils before me did not increase the rates and we had to make a big hike. So I would just say that, like with all things that we're trying to get on track, that we stay in line with inflation so that we don't find ourselves in this position again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we're going to do the rates and fees study too.
All right. I'm going to call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie? Strong, you're saying yes to fee increase?
Yeah.
Strong? Yes. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. And I would like to say just one more thing, and that's that if we see opportunity where we get a grant or any opportunity where we think that we could reduce the fees, even though we've agreed to increase the fees, if we can find a way to have cost savings going forward, that it comes back before council with a fee reduction.
Absolutely.
And Madam Mayor, and again, leading on what you said earlier, I also hated the idea of past councils not raising fees when they should have, and then kicking the can. And so if there's a chance that we just raise these enough that next year we're not coming back and doing it again, that if it's more of a realistic amount, if we even have to raise them, then I'd rather see that than another giant can kick.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And hopefully the continued litigation will slow and help control costs. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that and move on. All right, enactment of ordinances. We have none before us this evening. So I'll move on to the consent calendar. On the consent calendar, we have the City Council minutes of July 24, 2024. We have an adoption of a resolution changing the authorized signatures for the City of Willits checking account, payroll account, and safe deposit box at Savings Bank of Mendocino County. And an adoption of a resolution authorizing specific city staff to transfer funds between the local agency investment fund and Savings Bank of Mendocino County. Brian, did you want to say something on item B?
B and C?
B and C?
So that is in recognition of the recent retirement of HR manager Karen Stevenson. Her name was listed as a designated signator, and with her departure, we have to correct that, remove her from the record, and we added Mr. Cohen's name to the list. It's a housekeeping matter. I mean, typically, all the financial transactions are reviewed and approved by Mr. Orozco.
Any questions or comments from council? Anybody from the public have a question on this matter? It's the consent calendar, all right. Anybody want to make a motion? Councilmember Strong?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, I'll clear a matter. Is there something? Are we okay?
Where just, I don't know what that's at.
I was going to call for the vote. Is there a concern that we should be aware of?
There's some, a fire in Brook Charles, people are being evacuated.
Yeah. Near Buckeye.
Okay, I'm going to call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie? Yes. Strong? Yeah. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes, and with that, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We will reconvene at 7:13. Okay, at this time, if anybody needs to leave due to the fire that we've had an opportunity to take a look at, and it appears that it's in Brick Trails up near the Tulip, I think it's Tulip Drive area. If you need to attend to that or you have concerns, feel free to depart, and we're going to move on with this evening's meeting. Let's see, we took action there, okay. Monthly activity reports, we have none before us this evening. We also have no commission, agency, and authorities business to discuss. So I'm going to move on to the city manager reports and recommendations and turn it over to City Manager Bender for discussion and possible approval of the First Amendment to the Scout Hut lease dated April 15, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just adjusting my documents here. So what is before you is an item to amend, as noted in the agenda. It's the First Amendment to the existing lease, for the Scout Hut that is located in Recreational Grove Park. This was an item that Assistant Manager Moorhead was facilitating with, Rich Ford. We did the same thing the other day in the office. We were like, we will get it. Rich Ford, who actually works within the trade. He's with Lake County. Yeah. So basically, this was an item that was brought to us a couple months back. We went through the steps. We basically said to the Scouts to reach out to the Lions Club, make sure everyone is in agreement, and they are. So there's two essential items here that constitutes the amendment. One is a language regarding the charter sponsor of the Scouts, and basically the responsibility that the Lions Club has taken on. And basically then there's another item there that relates to physical repairs and the extent of those repairs, or the scale of them, what is the trigger point where the city, as the property owner and facility manager, would need to be notified and decide how to proceed. So those are the two items that are amended, that are, as part of the amendment, that is for the council's consideration. And all parties are in consent.
All right. Would the Lions Club or Scouts like to speak? You're not obligated to, but just an opportunity.
As I said, he knows how the process works.
Yeah, just a bit. So my name's Rich Ford. As Brian just discussed, we brought it forward to you guys, and I just want to say thanks for all the help that you guys actually gave us in this process, and thanks for hearing us out. That's pretty much all we want to say. Thanks for the support.
Can I ask Rich, are you you're happy with this?
Yes, very happy with it.
Oh, okay.
And so it actually facilitated a good conversation with us and the Lions.
And I see Skip here tonight, so.
No, I
He sent his
don't.
blessing.
Okay, all right, so I want to make sure.
Yeah, it facilitated a good conversation with us and the Lions. The amendment, like Brian discussed, is, puts kind of that relationship into focus, basically.
Because I know that you guys need a sponsoring entity, right?
Yeah.
How it works, and then.
Exactly, and so that's why we cannot, as a scout troop, we cannot do the lease ourselves. That's not how the framework is. We always have to have a sponsor. That sponsor then needs to have the lease done. And so by having the framework that Brian laid out in the paragraph, that kind of establishes that more fully and more clearly for us. And so we very much are appreciative of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Any further comment up here? No? Anybody from the public?
Hello. My name is Nikki Caldwell, and I have to say that I'm really, really glad that this is being done. I don't want to undermine the Lions Club at all, but there have been a couple of times where we heard talk about the Lions Den, and this kept being brought up that you now can rent it out. It goes as far back as 1959 when there was fundraiser for the Scout Club. It was a coffee break run fundraiser in October of '56 for the Scout Club. It went, and back then it was Troop 70. My daughter herself attended the venturing crew with Bert van Bezoin, who was the troop master back then and a part of the Lions Club. This is how we kind of mingled together into the Scout Hut. For me, sadly, again, I don't want to go against Lions Club, but it is and should always be the Scout Hut and not the Lions Den. Thank you.
And I think, the way I understand it, because of all the legal issues with the Scouts, that they needed this, not just in this community, but other places, for them to have this symbiotic relationship with an organization, is the way I understand it.
I don't know if I can speak from over.
You'd have to step up there.
As we were explaining before, yeah, that is very commonplace. And so you'll see it usually, the sponsors are usually churches, Moose Lodge, Lions Club, etc., right? And so it's usually nonprofits that are usually adult groups that are usually helping youth groups. And so that's kind of the symbiotic kind of relationship that can always exist with Scouts. And so this is very similar to everywhere else. In this case, we're very fortunate in the community. There is a Scout Hut, and that's such a big benefit for our troop. And again, thanks for the support.
All right, thank you.
The Scout Hut is a wonderful place. I was part of Troop 42 for over 10 years, and in the 90s painted the whole inside of the hut and did many modifications inside there. And I'm really proud of the fact that Willits has a strong troop presence, and people enjoy. We've got Camp Wente and other things to support the scouting program. Anything further? Anybody want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to
All right.
approve the proposed lease agreement in the form attached hereunto and authorize the mayor to execute the amendment.
I second it.
All right, Stransky seconds the motion. I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Appreciate the Lions Club and the local scouts. All right, moving on. City Manager, what else do you have for verbal reports?
Yes, so I do have one item, and basically this great position allows me to have a lot of opportunities to champion this community and everyone in it and this great organization. Unfortunately, this is an opportunity that I cannot take that opportunity. Over the last year or so, and especially over the last several months, our restrooms at our parks, especially City Park and Rec Grove, have been the targets of senseless vandalism. And a lot of it is not simply graffiti or, malcontents doing some damage. We're talking physical damage. We're talking about ripping out walls, fixtures, damaging plumbing. And because of that situation, today I authorized staff to close the restrooms at 2:30, because that's when our park crew goes home at the end of their shift for the summer hours. Because we just needed time to get caught up. We do have a plan. We are going to upgrade the doors to the facilities. We're going to increase the hardware on the doors as well as the locking mechanisms. So knowing that, and staff has asked me to put out there, they have taken pictures of the damage, and I do not want to do that. It's not pretty. It doesn't represent this community's values, so I do not want to do that. But speaking with Member Connie this afternoon, she said, let's justify this request in an empirical fashion. So staff this afternoon did a churn and burn and got a quick set of numbers for me. We're looking at nearly $15,000 in damage recovery that we had to apply since June of 2023 to the restrooms. And that is nearly $5,000 in materials, and then the other is staff labor. And that's just an estimate. That's fully loaded wages. That's $15,000 that's not coming out. That's coming out of general fund that can go elsewhere. This community is better than that, but then this, it's sickening. It is harming the people. The average resident with their kids who are enjoying our parks are being put out because of for whatever reason. So I want to put that out there. We are doing the best we can. Mr. Kohler has his staff looking at other options, but when we put staff time into repairing the damage, that's taking time away from other facilities, especially on the park side. Sometimes the damage is so extensive, we have to pull from the streets or utilities crew. This is unsustainable. So I'm just letting you know, we may have to keep it closed for another day or two. If there are other options, I know Member Connie has some suggestions, and I'm putting that out to her.
So, as you stated, we had a lengthy conversation about this afternoon. I did post about this a couple of months ago on my City Council Facebook page, asking the community for help, letting them know that costly repairs were happening at City Park and at Rec Grove repeatedly in our restrooms. And it goes beyond just, some kids having a good time. It's really extensive, and it needs to stop. And I think it's horrible to close the bathrooms. I don't agree with that choice, especially during summer, right when school's getting out and parents are taking their kids over to the park and then there's no bathroom. But I don't know what else the city can do. And so I'm asking the public to help with some suggestions. Do we need to form a citizens oversight group and start having some people who agree to monitor the restrooms on a regular basis? Do we need to have some citizens who will volunteer like they do on the Measure K committee to become key holders so they can lock the bathroom doors at 6 o'clock at night? We need some help from the general public so that we can maintain restrooms that everyone can use, because right now a few rotten apples are ruining it for everyone. So I hope that this will go wide and far and that people will talk to their friends and family and figure out what we can do to keep our restrooms open so that us taxpayers don't have to keep paying to replace doors and faucets and toilet paper dispensers and you name it, unclogged toilets. It's no good. And like Brian said, we can do better.
I just want to add to the general public, if you're a park user and you see some activity that is not accepted at the parks, not normal behavior or around one of our facilities, please contact the police department. They are available, we can respond. We will follow through with prosecution if we can identify. We are upgrading security cameras at the facilities, so we're going to be watching more ways than one.
One more thing, it's just especially distressing because we have this awesome opportunity with the Clean California grant to redo the restrooms at City Park, which is something that a lot of community members have asked about for years. It's really terrifying from a staff perspective and from a council perspective to put that grant money into new bathrooms if we think they're going to be disrespected the way our current bathrooms are being done. So please spread the word. We need community help on this one.
Thank you. That's what I have.
Right. Is there anybody who would like to address us on the city manager reports? Okay, we've got one right here, and then Mr. Kameroff, you'll be second.
Well, I would say because I bring my grandkids all the time to the parks, and I think surveillance is a key issue. Put everybody on surveillance as far as going in the bathroom, and then have periodically a staff or whoever, member of the community, whoever, do physical checks every hour, 2 hours, however long, and then review the tapes from the time, because if you can establish a time prior to the incident, time of the incident, you can pretty much see who's what inside that bathroom, and then the damage occurred. You can't blame them. You say, oh, it happened to occur while you were the only one going in there. What's your accountability? So there you go. That's what we have to do. If you start locking things up and spend a lot of money to do that, it's just going to cost more money. Because there's always that thug out there that just wants to tear it up anyway. So if you want accountability, you got to be able to track them down and say, look, we got you on tape going in, and this faucet was working perfectly fine at 11 o'clock, and when we went in at 12, it was broken. And you're the only one that went in there from 11 to 12, so what happened? There you go. But there you're raising another issue. Because now you got to deal with your transient community that travels through all over the states and the UNAS. And so now you're going to have to identify people that you might not be able to. So that's the major issue right there. So unless you do a stop like, oh, it's going to get too much. Anyway, so that would be, you can't stop and ask everybody, well, what's your name, see your ID, are you a one criminal? I think they outlawed that, right? So there you go. Well, back in the day, right over here when it used to be Chevron, 2 officers were in a patrol car, and a guy passing through town had a backpack, and they wanted to talk to him. Well, what happened? Well, he pulled a gun out of his backpack, shot the officers, and took the cop car on a joyride because they want to know who he was. Well, that's the kind of people you're dealing with. People that want to have a shootout instead of talk to you. So you better be careful what you're doing. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Kameroff?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a key and lock it up at dusk.
Do you mind stepping up there?
As you know, I live right across the street from City Park, although I haven't seen anything, I wasn't aware of it, but I'm usually in town most of the time. If you need a volunteer to lock it up when it starts getting dark, I'd be happy to do it.
I appreciate that. I have a good view quite often of the park too, and I have to say I'm over there more often than I would like giving lectures to people who are doing vandalism type things over at the park. All right. Anything further? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
My name's Charles Cully, and I live over on State Street, and I'd be more than happy to coincide with Bear and help with the key and monitoring the bathrooms.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Connie, you asked, and we have 2 volunteers. All right. Go ahead.
Can I just ask, is that order to close them down, to basically lock them after 2:30, starting immediately? And
It went into effect today, and I just spoke to Walter right before this meeting. We have placed an order for hardened doors, is that correct? Steel case doors?
No, they're just replacement doors. Some of the doors were so badly damaged that we have to just...
So we're going to replace the doors. Hopefully we get them up tomorrow with the new hardware. And then next week, the time locks are going to come in so we can set them, not remotely, but basically.
They're magnetic door locks that have a timer on them that we'll have more control over and be able to,
Ideally, we'll have the parks open at least to sometime later tomorrow, see if we can get back to a normal schedule. I may not be able to have them open, by, later than 4, because we've got to adjust some schedules, but we'll try to get them beyond 2:30.
So it sounds like this evening and tomorrow.
Yeah, just give us a little time to regroup and put together our plan.
And I want to appreciate that.
And we have some volunteers in the audience, and hopefully more heroes out there, and we're more than willing to take on the volunteers.
Because I just agree with the concern that we want our parks to be able to provide restrooms for all the visitors who aren't vandals.
I did not make this decision lightly. I did not want to do this, but after $15,000 worth of damage and recurring, and some of it's personal too. It's directed to our individual staff members.
Staff members and law enforcement.
So
both.
This is, like we said, it's not kids just having a good time, There's an underlying tone here that we need to address as well.
All right.
Can I ask the gentleman over there your name, and can I get both of you to come put your phone number down so we can possibly contact you with the possibility of getting keys to them?
Yeah, before you leave this evening, that would be wonderful. All right, I'm going to move on to department recommendations, their action items. There's a presentation of proposed park improvements located within Bud Snyder's City Park, funded by the Clean California Grant Program. Before I turn this over, I just want to recognize that myself and potentially one other council member here has a conflict of interest because we have property within 500 feet. So council will be hearing this presentation, but no council members will be commenting. We'll only, rather than remove the item, because I knew that there were people coming this evening, we're just going to give you an opportunity to speak, but we won't be responding. We're just taking public input. So I just want to be clear on that.
And for follow-up to that statement, this item will be returning to the council for formal action by the council once we receive an opinion from the Fair Political Practices Commission that we requested. Typically, they're about 21 days out. So this is just a primer. Dusty has a beautiful presentation going along. We have members of the community that want to participate, and then we'll bring this back in a later date.
I'm the other one that has a business that is within 500 feet. So thank you.
So we're going to leave all the comments and questions to the public. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dusty.
In my beautiful presentation.
Well, I did that because Taylor set such a high standard that I want you to achieve.
Does that mean I'm supposed to have 43 slides or? Yeah, okay, all right.
41, but a lot of color.
All right.
We can compensate for color.
All right, good. I got distracted there for a minute, just reminding about fire danger. That one was a little bit close to my house, but all resources were canceled. So my mind is back in the game here. Yes, Dusty Dooley, your Community Development Director. Thank you, Mayor, Head of Security of Bud Snyder Park, council members. Absolutely here tonight to present an update on the proposed improvements to Bud Snyder City Park. I do want to note that to support the discussion tonight, we did provide a meeting notice to all property owners within 300 feet of the park boundaries. That was about 57 properties, if you include, City Hall and everybody. We received 2 emails from members of the community. You have an email from Bear noting some concerns about the replacing the wood chips with the rubberized tiles, and then you also have an email from Miss Deborah Knowles, who is affectionately known as the Tea Lady,
noting her desire to explore this opportunity to see the farmers market move back to the park there. Just a little bit of background information that was mentioned earlier. All the improvements that we're talking about tonight are funded by the Clean California grant. And just to brag again about our city for a minute, we received about $2.7 million through this grant from Caltrans. About 18% of applicants throughout the state got funded, and we were one of them. I should probably then note that not all that money is for this park. We have improvements planned for Babcock Park, Rec Grove, and also some improvements out on Main Street consistent with our Main Street corridor enhancement plan. And then if anyone's aware of the Clean Canvas event or the free dump days, we're planning some community days. All those non-infrastructure items are also funded by this grant. So once again, a big thank you to Caltrans. The timing of this discussion is because we have recently completed the preliminary designs for the pavilion, bathroom, some pathways, and certainly wanted to share those designs with the community and council before we move forward with finalizing designs and moving on to construction. Also tonight, and I'll follow the mayor's lead and maybe stop after we get to those improvements, but we also want to share the results of the playground survey that was completed, because this grant is also going to support purchasing and installing new playground equipment within City Park. So just to start out here, again, with some background information, what you're seeing here is a map, an exhibit that was included in our Clean California grant application. So while there are some big improvements at hand, we also will be putting in some new waste and recycling receptacles, bike rack, anti-litter signs, a wayfinding signage kiosk. There'll be a new drinking fountain with a water bottle fill station, some new picnic tables, a chessboard. I look back at Manny because that was his idea. We have the shade structure pavilion. Initially, we had it at approximately 2,500 square feet. Some new pavement pathways, remodeling, re-roofing the existing park bathroom, replacing some of the playground equipment, again, replacing the wood chip surfacing with rubberized tiles, and then replace and widening some of the existing concrete walkways throughout to bring them up into ADA compliance. So this was what was included in the application. What you see here now is the 30% designs, the preliminary plans showing the location, the proposed location of the new pavilion. You'll see a driveway and some new pedestrian pathways, making some connections to the pavilion. And then some of that area outlined is replacing existing pavement. Again, that's in poor condition and bringing it up to ADA standards there. Let's see. So just a little bit more information on, actually go back to the pavilion here. So we're proposing a 40 by 80 or 3,200 square foot prefabricated metal pavilion with a 10-foot cantilever on the west side to further allow for shading underneath the pavilion at certain times of the day. Currently proposing an engineered concrete foundation and slab. We will have minimal electrical fixtures for lighting and a couple electrical outlets. That'll be undergrounded from an existing service there at the bathroom, and that's shown on the plan as well. And then we mentioned the driveway and the pathway there too. I'm going to kind of go out of order with the slides a little bit. Regarding the bathroom, again, it would be in the same footprint. We actually had considered actually just replacing the structure with a new bathroom, but what led us towards recommending the remodel was the existing bathroom, although maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing, is in good condition. When we looked at replacing it, we found that with the budget we had, we weren't going to be able to replace it with the same size structure, so we would have to go a little bit smaller, and that might have run afoul with the intent with the grant. So rather, what we're proposing to do is include new fixtures, stalls, and surface treatment of the existing interior surfaces, make sure the layout and the fixtures are ADA compliant. The exterior will get a new roof, as we're showing here, that'll look to be matched up with the facade of the pavilion roof, and then new lighting as well. We're also going to be putting the water bottle fill station on the side of the bathroom, approximately where the existing water fountain's located. And then the other improvement that will expand the footprint is actually adding a storage area along the eastern boundary of the fence. There's a little grassy area there between the end of the bathroom and the existing pathway, and that could be used for storage by the city, maybe by the farmers market, maybe by other users based on as permission is granted. So we showed that feature, that little storage area in here as well. And then again, I mentioned the pedestrian pathways. That's also part of these preliminary designs that SHN has completed for us here. I do want to note some changes. When you compare these preliminary designs with both the initial application that I showed on an earlier slide, as well as what you're seeing here, which is a conceptual plan layout that was included in our East Commercial Street plan. So those changes include, in the East Commercial Street plan, it was envisioned that the pavilion would essentially be located in the center of the lawn area on the north side of the park there. As you can see, we've tucked it into the northeast corner of the pavilion to avoid dividing up the green space. It's the details in there, maybe you can see it, but to really kind of focus in on the location, we're leaving a 6-foot strip of grass around the pavilion, so a 6-foot buffer or setback from the edge of the wood trips to the edge of the concrete pad for the of the pavilion there. By the other advantage by locating it there is if we do decide to maintain the driveway, then we can minimize the size and cost of that driveway. Sort of getting into, you know, maybe why it was put in this corner versus elsewhere in the park. We also have a rather big green space, open lawn on the west side of the park. And again, we have some of our neighbors here, so I would certainly, you know, be interested in hearing what their experiences are. But from staff, in looking out, some of our offices actually look out over the park. It seems like the area on the west side does get more use by the public. Maybe that's because we have the taller trees over there and it's a little bit shadier. But it seems to be that area of the park gets used a little bit more than the area that we currently show proposing the pavilion there. We talked about the change of going for a remodel of the bathroom versus a replacement. And obviously we've changed some of the locations for the pathways, recognizing the new proposed location for the pavilion there.
Dusty, would there be any heating in the bathrooms as part of this?
Heating?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just curious.
Here you can see just an elevation drawing of the proposed pavilion. And then on the bottom right is a photo of what it may closely resemble. So again, you know, you have a steel roof or steel supports there on a concrete pad. The thought is underneath here it should be about 25 degrees cooler on average than if you were standing out in the sun. They call it a cool roof. And then this is just showing the floor plan, just very basic. So that covers the slides that I have prepared for that portion of the presentation. I'm happy to stop here, Mayor, or I can continue on and talk a little bit about the playground survey.
Let's see if there are questions that are specific to that. Does anybody from the public want to? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am. I'm gonna go ahead and if you want to step up to the podium, and then I'll give Dusty an opportunity to either hear your feedback or answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, hi, I'm Suzanne Beers, and I'm a resident of State Street on the east side. I'm kitty corner to the proposed new pavilion site. And I feel like that is an error to change the plan, because it puts a lot of burden on the east side neighborhood and the sound impacts. And that precise corner, there's 4 elderly households that I feel would be disturbed by the site. And it's not, I think everyone's pretty supportive about the farmers market coming back to the park, but a place where people come to have birthday parties. I don't know if they'll bring a jumping house or something, but it's just a lot of stimulation on that the east side of the park. We've got the playground, the bathrooms, and now we have the pavilion. And I think it's just an overload for the community on the east side of the park. And I feel that on the layout of the park itself, and I think that's why it was originally chosen, it's really a superior location for the design plan of the park. And I was part of the people saying that we might need to preserve the open space, but there's still remaining open space with having a more balanced plan to have the pavilion more centrally located, and that diffuses the impacts of all the development in the park to the whole neighborhood, instead of having the burden just be bared by the people on the east part. And I'm very sensitive to sound, and I'm extremely close to that corner, and it'd be very disruptive. And we just recently moved to Willits, and one of the places we chose that neighborhood because it is a quiet neighborhood, and I feel like there's some expectation that it remain that way. And I know that the group camping is a lot of kids' birthday parties, and I'm a favor of people celebrating, but it's just, I don't really want to go to tons of birthday parties. And I know it's something that people like to do. And I question whether the pavilion should be a place away from the neighborhood totally, and maybe more across from the city hall or something like that. But the minimum consideration I would ask is that the original plan be followed, because like I said, there's currently there's 4 neighbors that I have spoken to right at that corner who are not in favor of the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm Michael Foley. As most of you know, I've been manager of the Willits Farmers Market for 10 years or more, with a couple off for good behavior. I've been before you before looking for a permanent home for the Willits Farmers Market. And I went to Dusty with that request, and he was looking at this grant opportunity, and that I appreciate that he has pursued the idea of a pavilion in the park as a home for the farmers market during the spring and summer months. And also I appreciate Dusty's keeping me informed of this, and Bear Kamarov's making sure I was paying attention. So I have two different kinds of concerns. One is suitability for the farmers market. The other is design principles. Suitability for the farmers market, One part of that has to do with access for vendors. In conversations with Dusty, I advocated that vendors be able to bring their vehicles up under the pavilion and set up behind their vehicles, as you do in a lot of farmers markets. We don't generally have the space for that where we are now, but it's kind of a tradition. And during the summer, we have produce vendors with an awful lot of stuff, and if they had to schlep it up to the pavilion, it would put an added burden on them. The current design does not make that possible. It's not big enough for that, unless we allow a certain number of vendors on the State Street side to back up over those wood chips up against the pavilion and set up there. And then there would be approximately a 10-foot footprint for their setup under the pavilion, 10 foot across the way for somebody else, a 20-foot walkway for customers, and it would be a very pleasant setting. That seems to me really important, that there be some kind of accommodation for that kind of access for our biggest produce vendors. And it's important that produce be on that side because of the shade. Produce has to be displayed, so the shade of the pavilion is important to keep that from wilting and frying in the sun. One reason why we haven't petitioned to come back to the park. I know there are 3 trees there in that space 30 feet apart. They're stunted. They were probably stunted in their first 3 years because that's when that happens. They are never going to be shade trees, but if you want to keep them, we could still accommodate the kind of design that I'm talking about. My 3 minutes are up, so I think I can't go on to the design questions. So,
could you wrap it up in just another 30 seconds?
Another 30 seconds. In terms of design, I think we should be, like France and the Summer Olympics, looking to do the lowest carbon footprint. Concrete is not that. Steel is not that. There are alternatives. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate your comment. I know sometimes we want to add a little from not at the podium, and I would ask that you save all comments for at the podium. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I do, Mayor Carroll, but I have a question first. There's going to be another public meeting over this? Is that, if I understand, this is not really the public meeting?
This is an opportunity, so as was initially explained by the mayor, 2 council members have a conflict. And knowing that has been identified, and we already received, Jim Lance, city attorney, and myself already received an opinion that has been shared with the council. We had a couple of options. We could have tabled this hearing, and that we didn't want to do that because we knew staff was prepared, we had notices gone out, and the public wanted to participate. What we wanted to do tonight was allow the initial presentation to be given, the public have an opportunity to weigh in, initial comments. When we receive our opinion on how to inform the council regarding the potential conflicts, we will bring this back as a normal item. There may be 1 or 2 council members who may not be able to sit on during that discussion and participate in the formal action. But staff does have capacity right now with the project scheduling that we can wait a month or so. Whatever's going to be presented tonight is going to be essentially presented again. We're not going to take the time and put a 45% or a 50% plan forward and lose the time. So what we're hearing now is comments that Dusty's going to register. He will have the opportunity to meet with you at any subsequent time or a council member for clarification, but yes, it will come back for formal action. If the council at that time says they want the pavilion shifted in its orientation, that direction will be given to staff.
And also, if I may suggest that public notice went out to a handful of residents who live near the park but it's not a neighborhood park. It's a park used by anyone in the city, and I would think that the notice should go down to everyone in the city. It's not like a local liquor store or something that's going to affect a neighborhood. So very few people knew about this meeting today, and it'd be nice if more people heard about it. Anyway, as you know, I live right across the street from the park, and that park in good weather is used every day of the week by lots of people, and it's a very popular park, but it's a very small park. It's only a city block, and it's already been the usable area rather severely impacted a few years ago when the lawn in the center of the park was replaced by a wide circle of wood chips that everybody avoids. Nobody works on it or plays on it. So we've already cut way down on the useful area, and a pavilion, which everybody seems to like, 40 feet by 80 feet, that's a very large footprint, and it's going to cut down even further. My thought was that if the pavilion was right up against State Street, so the farmers market vehicles could just back up to it there like they always did before, we'd have more of a grassy area. I understand Suzanne Beer's concerned about that corner, but most of the play in that park is a lot of kids throwing footballs and parents playing baseball with their kids and frisbees and dogs, and it's a run. They need that nice run, and the trees on Humboldt Street have done extremely well, and so they allow for a lot of shade over there. But the idea of a concrete driveway was not presented at all at the public hearing. It was not suggested by the landscape architects, and I sure hope we can find a way that they aren't able to do it. I guess we're going to talk about the playground some other time, but I think I agree with the fact that we need all that concrete in City Park, I think, is a detriment to the park. It's a really small park. It's not Rec Grove. I think there might be some way to downsize it just a little to fit the park. But I would say that whatever we do, I do appreciate the work's gone into it. I appreciate Dusty talking to me, showing up. The city's must be doing a decent job because it's a good city. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So you will have an opportunity if you want to address on the next phase of what Dusty's presentation is. Is there any further comment before? Okay, we'll hold off. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard before we talk about the next phase.
So a little history on the park there. I have a picture of my mom in front of what would be a building of some kind, located right about where the top playground for little kids is. It was tore down. That might have been the 50s. She was young. She was a teenager. And so it was tore down and got it rid of, and all this was expanded. So I wouldn't see any reason why you couldn't just, if you're going to buy a new park for the kids anyway, just move the pavilion down to that southeast corner. You're right there against the curb, and move that park up north. And there's kids playing there, and all the noise is downstream. That'd be the easy fix. And you get plenty of shade from the good-sized trees out there.
I don't quite understand you're saying.
Yeah, just put the pavilion down here. This used to be a building right here.
Right.
Okay? But it got tore down and things got changed. And so I'm saying just take the pavilion and put it down here, take this and move it up there. Of course, the old merry-go-round and the seesaws and stuff have been there for years, since I was a kid. So that'd be kind of a shame to see them go, but hey, progress is progress. We've got to move and get them out of there.
All right, sir?
I'm Charles Cully. I live on State Street. I'm going to be very impacted also by the pavilion. And I'm wondering if facing the fire station might be a lesser impact on all the residents that live around the park, and possibly even get some afternoon shade from the fire station as well, as far as the farmers market.
I'm also curious why there's no mention of solar panels on either of these structures, the pavilion or the bathroom.
Thank you. All right, anybody else from the public? All right, Dusty, if you want to respond to any of those questions or comments and then move on to the next phase, please.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for acknowledging staff's effort there, and working with staff to recognize a good placement, hopefully for the farmers market. We found out very recently the setup with the situation with council here, so they can't provide direction to us tonight, but we'll keep working with you to discuss some alternatives. If there's something viable there, we'll work with you and see where that goes. Anything we come up with has to be ADA compliant, so that's certainly a key thing to think of as we look at alternative surfaces there. But as Michael knows, we're happy.
Maybe just a little bit louder so they can hear you too, Dusty.
Oh, okay, yeah. So just what I think a key point that I just mentioned was any alternative surfacing we look at, we need to understand that it needs to be ADA compliant. So that becomes, a very, very flat surface. And Michael knows we'll genuinely work with him to explore some alternatives on that front, something that's more, doesn't have such an environmental cost to make. And then I just want council to be clear again. I understand you can't provide comments, but what Michael's talking about is, we have the wood chips here. Yes, there are a few trees. They are nowhere near providing substantial shade yet. But the idea is, to maximize the opportunity for vehicles to park up against the pavilion. If those trees are removed, we would remove irrigation, obviously, but then vehicles could back up here and then right in front of their vehicles at the edge of the pavilion, they could set up their booths, and this would be allowed for certain vendors. This driveway, I meant to mention this in my initial presentation. The intention is not to allow the farmers market the vehicles to go in there and park within the park. None of this is intended to allow people to park within the park, especially on the grassy areas necessarily, but rather it's to allow an entrance for staff to be able to maintain the building. Certainly we recognize and hope that the farmers market will take advantage of it. If they have some unloading, loading opportunities that they can benefit from the driveway, it could serve that. We know we have the Clean Canvas event that we're hoping to hold annually there. We have it planned again for next year. We just heard about the FFA's event, so if they're able to use that space, if they have heavier stuff that need to access the pavilion, then the driveway can serve that purpose. The other plan that's not, the other element that's not shown on here is there would be 2 bollards that would be removable and lockable, and so keys would be provided to entities that need to go in there and remove them, but otherwise that driveway would remain inaccessible. So I wanted to make that point. We do not have money in the grant for solar panels, but I suppose, that could be an opportunity for a future location for solar panels. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there was something I wanted to talk with Bear with, but I know where Bear lives and I have his number, so we'll keep talking. Okay. And so I think with that, move on to the playground.
Yeah, and just a little bit louder because I can tell they're still struggling back there.
Oh, okay.
And remember that doesn't...
Usually I'm really loud, so okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Just getting into, again, we have money within the grant to support purchasing new playground and installing it within the park here. And we developed a survey to gather public input, and what you're seeing here is part of that survey. So we believe we're going to have enough money to purchase and room to support at least one large piece of playground equipment. And so what you're seeing here is the results from approximately 90 respondees. By the way, this survey is still open and available on the city website. It may be closing as soon as the end of this month, because I also want to mention We just found out about a new grant opportunity that will pay for 50% of some of the playground equipment, and we got confirmation that we can leverage our existing grant funds as our matching contribution. It's a first come, first serve, so while we do have some time to get some input and bring this matter back to council, and SHN's the one doing our design work, so we did build purposely in some time to gather public input, but there is some limited time there to maintain and get us to our construction schedule. But I'm also anxious to try to take advantage and get that grant opportunity as well to hopefully recognize some additional funding to support this project for the city. But as you can see, there's sort of themed with slides. The top left, that was the leading candidate. There's opportunities to, from the comments, it sounded like the fact that it just kind of had a bunch of different features is really what people appreciated about that element. The tower with slides here at the bottom left, the purple one, that was a relatively close second. The advantage with that one is it's tall and it doesn't take up a lot of area, so there'll be some different factors that we look at. We're going to be removing some of the playground equipment. I can say that the merry-go-round by far received comments of like, no, you're not removing that. So that one, based on the comments, is likely to stay. We also heard that the swings are very popular. But for instance, we might relocate the swings to elsewhere in the park to accommodate large equipment. So that's the process that staff is currently thinking through, and it's being informed by this survey. So we also polled the community on small playground equipment that they preferred, and we have at least, people love swings, which is no surprise, so we're hearing that through the survey as well. We also looked at color schemes, and this yellowish, greenish blue apparently is well liked in the community, so we will take that under direction as well. So again, understand we can't get feedback from the council tonight. We'll do another opportunity for community members to chime in here. But again, we're anxious to get going on that element of the project too, especially recognizing this grant opportunity that's at hand. And depending, it may be with the budget, and it wasn't shown on these plans, but I do want to mention it. There may be an opportunity to expand the playground a little bit, and the area that we would look at, should that become a possibility and be supported, would be to take over just that little bit of area east of the bathroom, in between the bathroom and the sidewalk, to get a couple more maybe small pieces of equipment. And we've heard through the survey and other people that have come into the office that they would appreciate some equipment that was accessible to handicapped folks as well. That also gets to the point of looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the wood chips versus the idea of doing the rubberized tiles, so I'll just speak to that for a second as well. With the rubberized tiles, it allows us to create a flatter surface so that it's more accessible to the kids. Right now, as far as a maintenance perspective, probably a couple times a year, our staff has to go out to the park and replace the wood chips. It's about a $5,000 cost to the city. There's also weekly maintenance that goes along with the wood chips and reflattening them out under the swings, under some of the playground equipment. So replacing the wood chips would create a cost savings to the city, and then also clear up some substantial time from our park staff to work on other matters. So that was part of the thinking behind going from the wood chips to the rubber pavers. Certainly a lot of times the pavers are made out of recycled tires. We can look to see if there's other alternatives, maybe they're a little bit more environmentally friendly. I can see different studies that tell you, that doesn't cause an issue, but I mean, that we all are aware of what goes into recycled tires. So I'm certainly sensitive to the comments that Bear made in his email there. But anyways, that's just some of the thoughts behind looking at the wood chips versus going with the pavers there.
All right, thank you. I'll give the public an opportunity to speak. I would ask, though, that you keep your second round of comments very specific to the other half of the presentation, which would be the playground equipment. And with that, go ahead.
I just had a question.
You have to step to the podium. Sorry. Gotta make sure everybody can hear.
Well, I'm just confused about the wood chips and why they're even there. And I just wanted to understand the history of why there isn't just grass there, and why do we have a maintenance thing, and to make the park less friendly to have that border of wood chips. And I'm just wondering, just as another question, is if the trees aren't growing, why don't we replace them? But I don't know if this is appropriate time to deal with that.
I think that the playground wood chips is, can you answer that?
I'm talking about the border.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate to ask?
I know the answer to it, but I'll let you.
Go ahead.
There's laws around playground equipment, and there has to be based on the height of the play structure.
I'm talking about, well, the rest of the park, but maybe
Yeah.
we're not talking about
But there
that.
has to be a safe base. So generally when you go to parks, either the rubber has to be a certain depth, or if it's wood chips, I believe that, for example, 6 feet requires 6 inches of wood chips, so that if a child falls, that there is cushion there.
Okay.
And so there are some mandates around
Thank you.
that.
And then I heard her also talking about asking why the wood chips are around the perimeter of the park in between the trees. And it was before your time, Walter, but I think it had to do with cost savings and using less water within the park. But
So maybe you could get back to the public in the next hearing and give some additional input. Go ahead, Mr. Kameroff.
Well, I wasn't aware of the survey. I'm glad I am. I'm now a grandfather with kids who play in playgrounds all the time. And this is not scientific, but my daughter, who has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, live in Sacramento, and they're part of a lot of play groups. And so they've been going to a whole lot of playgrounds in Sacramento. And I asked her about it. She said that the great majority of playgrounds there are using wood chips and not the rubberized foundation. And the ones who had rubberized foundations, and I don't know about the recycled tires, but they find that they get brittle, they crack, they start to lose chunks, and they become a replacement problem. Also, the great majority of them are made as a petroleum product, and they will have to go to the dump when they're done. But I take my grandkids over to the city park here regularly, and I got to tell you, those kids love the wood chips. They just love tossing them around a little and flopping in them, and they're made of wood. They're wholesome, and I would highly encourage that you keep them. It appears that at least that giant city over there decided that was a better idea. So anyway, that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the hearing. And staff has heard your comments and may bring potentially modifications or other ideas forward when it comes before this council again. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9B, which is discussion and possible adoption of resolution of acceptance and dedication of the improved Hale Creek Trail. And Walter Cullen, our Director of Services and Facilities, will bring this matter up before us.
Madam Mayor and City Council. This is something that has been going on over several years. When the Hale Creek subdivision was put in, there was a donation of land through the Howard Hospital and the Frank R. Howard Foundation. At that point, the land had been given to the city, and later on, there were improvements made to the trail by the Howard Foundation, and they put a park course in, and they've been maintaining it over the years. But what they'd like to do is dedicate that formally to the city, and what we're presenting is a 4-year plan where they're assisting in maintenance, which they've been doing through volunteers, but that's been a shrinking force, whereas the city would take over within a 4-year period, staggered in with that time, and it'll become a city asset, and the park course would be maintaining it with park staff. And so they're continuing funding and slowly phasing out over a 4-year period, and then the city will take over ownership and maintenance of that park and trail.
Okay.
So this would be a formal acceptance of that, yes.
Well, I think that many of us council members have probably shared thoughts and concerns so that some of those have been mitigated, but in general, I'm very excited about it. Any questions or comments from any of the council?
I would just like to comment that this came to my attention when Dave Madrigal, a longtime Willits resident, was getting ready to move away from Willits. Dave lived over in the Hale Creek subdivision and took a very active role in the maintenance of that trail for a lot of years. And he was concerned that the other volunteers had sort of aged out, and with him leaving town, he was worried that the many years of dedication to that trail would fall by the wayside and that it would no longer be maintained. I'm so grateful to our city manager and to Walter and to Arnie Mello of the Howard Foundation for working together and finding a way to transition the park or the trail away from volunteers and into proper city, not that the volunteers weren't doing proper maintenance, but that it will be now codified with the city, and so it won't fall by the wayside. It's a trail that's used by a lot of people over in that neighborhood, as well as hospital staff members. I recently walked it with my mom and stepdad who were visiting, and we saw 6 different hospital employees taking their breaks walking on that trail. It's a great respite for them. So I'm really excited that Dave's many years of dedication to that trail will be recognized, and that the Public Works crew is stepping up to take care of it. I'm glad to have this in the city's list of assets for our town.
I can still see him with his backhoe out there, making that trail longer and longer each time you would visit. Yeah. Vice Mayor Gonzalez?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Walter, you guys are prepared, you've talked to your staff, you guys are ready to take this on when the time comes?
What was that?
Your staff is prepared to take this on and you've got a plan in place?
We're getting there, yes. It's going to be a little bit of extra work, but we're planning for it. And the Frank R. Howard Foundation is looking at actually donating a piece of equipment to assist with that they're going to donate possibly a side-by-side that we have extra equipment to take care of it. And I'd also like to call Jim Lance. He's done a tremendous amount of research with Dolores. There was a lot of questions. This has been going on for multiple years, and just ownership and transfer and everything. So thank you, Jim, for doing all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that it isn't only the residents in Hale Creek subdivision, because I've gone out there, and I live on the other end of town, but it's a wonderful trail, especially in summer, because it's so shady. So on these hot days, you can still get out and hike on a really nicely maintained, it's lovely, it's just a lovely trail, it's very nicely maintained. So it's a city asset.
I think more people will start using it too, and Dusty, with the rail trail project, it's going to tie together a lot of that area, and I think it is a great asset for the south end of town there.
Any comments from the public? All right, having heard none, this is an action item before us. We have our resolution.
I'll move approval of the staff recommendation to accept the dedication of the Hale Creek Trail to the city under the provisions.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie? Yes. Strong?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rivers?
Yes, all right, the motion carries to adopt the resolution for the dedication of the Hale Creek Trail. All right, moving on to another adoption of a resolution of a project plan for fiscal year 2024-2025 with funding from the road maintenance and rehabilitation accounts revenues. And again, I'll turn it over to our Services and Facilities Director.
Thank you. As you know, every year, the City of Willits identifies a project, a pavement preservation project, to try to improve streets and roads. Currently, we're just buttoning up the 23 pavement preservation program. We just started this week the 24, but now we're looking ahead towards the 2025 pavement preservation project. And the project we've identified in 23, the West Mendocino Avenue, we did underground utilities and drainage improvements there. And that was phase one of getting underground improvements done before the paving could be done. We get SB1 funding from the state of California. This is to move this project ahead and get approval to start looking at that as our next 2025 project and get state funding for that approved. This resolution, if approved, would go to the state and they'll look at the project and we would start doing project analysis and costs and start putting together a plan for that 2025 project.
Any questions from council? I know we've been discussing this at the Transportation Committee level as well. Anybody from the public? All right, anybody want to make a motion?
I'd like to move staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie?
Yes.
Strong?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes. All right, the motion carries 5-0 for the resolution of a project planned for road maintenance and rehabilitation. And we've tabled item 9D, so we'll move on. Department monthly reports are presented at the second meeting of each month. So move along to City Council announcements, communications, and reports, and start with you, sir, Councilmember Stransky.
We have the water meeting tomorrow is the first thing, and I beat you there. And the yard sale was really interesting on Saturday. Those people that didn't see it or didn't put it on, they had a citywide, the Chamber of Commerce made a citywide yard sale, and each house had a different section wherever you live. And I understand that there was something like 26 different participants in it. The nice thing about it also for me was that they gave a certificate for a yard of waste to go to the dump free of charge, and that was very nice. I just thought that we had a lot of people that came in our area, but we had 3 different groups of people that were in our area, and started at 8 o'clock, and at 7:45 they started, and it went till about 1 o'clock, and it gets so hot that everybody just kind of dissipated. And I think most people, it supposedly went till 5 o'clock, but most people kind of turned it off at 3. But it was very enjoyable, and I heard it as a council person. Most people know that came that I was on the council, that they thought it was a really good idea, and they wanted it. Most of them that talked to me wanted it 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and this was only one day, and maybe a couple of times a year. Anyhow, the yard sale I thought went over really well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Strong?
Yes, okay, so first of all, Sonoma Team Power met on August 1st, and they will not meet in September, so the next one will be in early October. The most interesting item is continuing to be the geozones, and there was a very well-attended town hall that was both Zoom and in person, and if anyone still wants to find out more about geozones, it's a really exciting source of very low impact on the environment and lower costs for electricity and Sonoma Clean Power is very much at the forefront of pushing that along. I think that's all about Sonoma Clean Power. Also, this past week, there was a meeting of the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority, and I was very concerned still about the lack of adequate information about exactly where the money that the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority collects is going and how they are. I don't feel as though our budget is very transparent. And the board had already recommended a tipping fee increase, which is that all the haulers in the whole county, when they take their garbage to the dump site, they pay an extra fee, which goes to the Solid Waste Management Authority to handle hazardous waste. That fee has been $6.50 per ton. The proposed increase is $3, so it would be $9.50 per ton going forward. That was proposed at our previous meeting, but it was actually approved formally at our meeting this last week. I was very skeptical because I didn't feel like we had adequate information, but the thing that turned my mind around was that we have not raised that $6.50 tipping fee for probably 10 years. I'm not sure the exact number, but it was when Mike Sweeney was director, so it's been about 10 years. And of course, it hasn't been adjusted for inflation at all. And so that kind of finally convinced me that indeed, in order to continue the hazardous waste management tasks that our agency is tasked with, we did need to increase the tipping fee. We were basically falling behind every year and not being able to adequately dispose of the waste, and we have no reserves to go after funding.
Thank you.
I know you want me to. I just want the public to know that $9.50 tipping fee, which is a $3 increase, is going to amount to about 20 cents per typical household per month. And that will start in January when the new garbage rates are adjusted for all the other things they get adjusted for. So it'll come to us as part of the regular waste contract. So basically, it's a pass-through cost.
If they choose to bring it before us.
Well, they always have to bring any of the garbage rates.
If they choose to increase it.
The actual tipping fee, I have been told, because it's a pass-through amount, does not require approval by the city councils or the board of supervisors. It is considered a pass-through, like going to Cold Creek Compost or buying diesel for their trucks or anything else. They build it into the garbage rates. So that is the plan, that it is being passed on to the garbage companies. They will each go to their jurisdictions with revised numbers, which will include that tipping fee. Is that clear? I'm trying to be transparent about this.
No, I think it was clear. I'm just reflecting back on a meeting that city manager and I had with Bruce McCracken, and he was talking about how he seldom brings that forward and that he anticipated not coming to us in January to raise rates if it went up a small amount. That being said, that doesn't mean he's locked in, so he could still do that. But he may not. I guess what I was saying is it doesn't necessarily automatically.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was good information. Thank you.
Yeah, and also two other things about that. One is that our next meeting of the solid waste management isn't until October, and it was important to take action. But I did get support from other board members that we want a much more thorough and transparent budget process, and try to anticipate kind of what are the trends on solid waste management, which things are costing us a lot, are people disposing of more hazardous waste or not. So I hope we will, at our next meeting, have some more information. And also on that subject, there is a Hazmobile event September 5th and 6th here in Willits. Sure, we can announce that again next time, but that's one of our opportunities for households to drop off their hazardous waste, which are things that don't go in the garbage. The other thing, actually, that's all. There was not a meeting of the EDFC. They're only meeting quarterly now.
Okay.
And so I'll have more later about that.
Sounds good. Vice Mayor Gonzalez? Nothing this evening. And Councilmember Connie?
Thank you. I attended the Mendocino Council of Governments meeting on Monday. That's the transportation group. And I wanted to let the council know 3 items. First, the Surface Transportation Block Grant for fiscal year 24-25 was approved, and MCOG allocates monies to member agencies. $155,000 will go to the city of Willits. The other item, financial item, was the REAP, Regional Early Action Planning Program, is set to expire soon, and there were some unspent funds from the county. So MCOG reached out to all of the agencies and is reallocating those monies. The county won't be able to use them in time. And so MCOG worked with Dusty, and $61,000 of those dollars will be reallocated to the city of Willits to help with our general plan project that you're working on. And then the other item I've mentioned in the past, that MCOG is working on joining a REN, which is a regional energy network, a rural region energy network. When this first started more than a year ago, the REN was going to include partners, cities from San Luis Obispo, North Coast, kind of a host of cities from across California. That planning did not go well. There started to be some conflict between different agencies, how they wanted to structure the deal. So now it has actually been split into 2 RENs, and we will be participating in the North REN, which will include Mendocino, Lake, Humboldt, Northern Sierra, and will no longer include San Luis Obispo, San Mateo, and some of those larger Central Coast areas. In some ways, this is a negative because we lose out on the expertise of some of the larger communities, but in many ways, what we've all agreed on is that this is actually an opportunity for the REN to truly be rural and to represent the needs of our small North California communities. The best thing about this is that once this is approved, we will be able to offer regional rebates to Willits residents as well as county residents to help with energy efficient upgrades that people make to their homes as well as to their businesses. So it's a real opportunity for our residents to save money on energy-wise improvements. So that should happen soon. I'll let you know when that goes down, but look forward to some cost savings in the future. That's it.
All right, thank you. For myself, it's just been a heavy couple of weeks of just lots of meetings with constituents, hearing their concerns, being able to relay some of them back, and getting some follow through with city staff, which I appreciate. And that's all I have this evening. Do we have any good and welfare?
Go ahead.
Actually, I have a whole bunch, I'll try to make them very brief. But Willits Economic Localization's been we've reactivated recently with new board members, and we are sponsoring the Singing on Street Corners Choir, which is going to meet on August 21st over at City Park at 5 o'clock. On August 24th, a Saturday, we're going to have a garden open house at the NCO Community Garden. It's right there at the WISC complex near South Lenore and East Valley. 4 o'clock on Saturday the 24th. We're also doing fiscal sponsorships for the Willits Shelter Action Group, which is trying to pursue funding and program to be able to house people who don't have housing. And we are also considering fiscal sponsorship of the Wellness Collective, which is going to be doing a grant application for serving in Covelo with free health advisors and low-cost health programs. And we're also planning to have, we're going to work with Ready, which is right on West Commercial Street. They used to do a health program, which was a home energy link program for low-income housing. They're now going to be doing a new one, that was 10 years ago. They're going to do a new one in the Willits area, which will be home everything. So energy, water, transportation, housing improvements, things like that. We're meeting tomorrow to sort of see how Wells and Ready can work together on that. And we're also looking at doing a candidates forum for the Willits City Council election and for the school board election that will be coming up. And that's being planned for October 6th, which is about the time that ballots get mailed for the November election. So many good welfares. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on it?
I just wanted to say school is opening up on August 19th. So bear with the traffic over there in the Brookside area, and I guess watch out for the kiddos as they're walking to school.
All right. Transportation or something? For good of welfare? No? All right. Well, my good and...
Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to remind everybody that today was, at 5 o'clock, was the closing period for turning in paperwork for running for city council. And we have 4 candidates that turned in paperwork for 3 seats that are up for election.
All right. And with that, good and welfare for the evening is it's 8:35, and I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.